Well, hello everybody for another CIRF report. This one for March 18th through the 24th, 2021. This is an unprecedented CIRF report. I know I probably say this a lot, but no, this one really is a lot different. And I'll explain as we go along, but we've missed out on a camera. We do have our CIRF guy here, and we've got a yin-yang week. All right, and we are missing another camera, but we don't need it. Now this already looks weird, right? Because we don't have our circles. We just have this yin yang thing in here. And what the hell is that supposed to mean? Okay, so if you're new here, we triangulate, and we triangulate for the influence. All right, we need to know what the majority of us are going to feel externally to us, like the stars are going to produce some sort of energy, but also the collective mind. When we do that with the dreambot, the collective unconscious has a stake in what we feel. And by the way, I'm going to assume my audio is good unless someone says it's crappy, which I don't mind. Please tell me if the audio sounds crappy and I'll fix that next time. All right, but we triangulate these, and we normally have three circles: astrology, dreambot, and the I-Ching. They seem to contradict this week, but the actual flow is not an influence solution this week. It's more of a flow. There's an energy flow this week. And to start off the week, it's going to be very yin. And to end the week, it's going to be going into yang. And by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. I do have green on today, but let's see here. Okay, let's get into the astrology, just a little overview, just so you can get an idea. And we're going to hammer down each day one by one, but we have the spring equinox coming up. That's about midweek in our CIRF report. Our CIRF goes from Thursday to Wednesday. So our midweek is like the weekend. Over the weekend, spring equinox happens, sun goes into Aries. Then we have the Uranus square Saturn, we have the trine Mars, we have Sun and Venus, both of them entering into Aries. So that Aries is very yang. And so we have the Sun currently in Pisces, and it's very yin, it's very dreamy, it's very accepting, it's very emotional. That's all very yin. The I-Ching says it's completely yin. If you see that, that's a yin. All these lines, these segmented lines, that means 6 times the coins were tossed and 6 times we got yin lines. So it definitely sees at least the beginning part of this week very yin. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But we have the dreambot in the opposite end of the spectrum. It's seeing more of the future. At the end of the week, it's definitely more yang. They throw in a little bit of travel there. And that in and of itself could be a little bit yang. So yeah, I think that's a great place to get started. And we're going to start with the collective unconscious when we come back. Hang on. Kaboom. Here's the dreambot, collective unconscious. I'm going to zoom in, and what we look for are memes. Well, we have our first word, our top word up here in people's dreams is vehicle. And so I've got the red arrows, and there's only 3, but it's worth putting in there because it includes the top word. So vehicle, auto, and train. So it's transportation, it's travel, all right? But the big meme is yang. It's kill, shred, fire, bending, blur, fragment. It's almost sort of like an obliteration, which is part of this process. The yin's going to get obliterated more towards yang as we head into spring and sprung and Aries. So it does seem to match. I'm not going to dwell on this collective unconscious a whole lot because we've got some info to talk about in the astrology. Let me get my highlighter out. And as you can see, both Venus and the sun are going into Aries. That's midweek. And when the sun goes into Aries, that's considered the vernal equinox. And we'll talk about that. And we also have the big news is, you can kind of infer here that they're together, but this red line right here, that's Sun conjunct Venus. And they are, it's not a Kazemi sort of thing, they're at different latitudes. And so that's going to make things interesting from an energetic standpoint, because there's going to be at somewhat odds with each other. It's not like the sun is degrading Venus in this case, but it is more of like you're going to have to balance those things out. So I'll talk more about it when we get there, but that's an important one as well. That's why I highlighted that one. Thursday, the 18th, we have, look at all these opportunities. Sextile, 2 sextiles here with the Sun and Venus on the moon. And then we have the Sun and Venus on Pluto. So you've got 4 sextiles. That's mega opportunities on this, whatever you want to call it. They're 2 degrees away right now, Venus and Sun. They're at different latitudes. And so they're nicely separated from each other, but almost too separated because they're exact distance away from the equatorial plane, which I'll talk about that later. Hold on. Let's talk about these sextiles, because this is the end of the sextiles, at least on this side. The moon's going to be out of here by tomorrow, and the sextiles will be gone, but these represent opportunity. So opportunity through emotional work, but emotionally experiencing. That's the Taurus part of the moon. Moon in Taurus, it's really sinking into those emotions. And that's the opportunity for ego. That's the sun and your relationships. It really is going to highlight when you get really in tune with your emotions and allow yourself to feel those and don't hide away from those. That's going to be an opportunity for spiritual ego, that almost sounds like a contradiction, a spiritual growth in your ego, in your identity, but also a spiritual meaning Pisces and connectedness, spiritual growth in your relationships and the way you handle money. And then you go this other route over to Pluto. This will hang out a little bit longer than the moon, but we have 2 sextiles over here, which is an opportunity with this inner power. We talked about inner power with Capricorn, but we also have sort of the cycle. And this report's going to be almost entirely about just the cycle from yin to yang, and possibly some sub-cycles in there. And then you have a forward-looking Mars on the North Node. That's 5 degrees away now in Gemini. So adaptable Mars, adaptable yang and doing, is now running confused by, conflicted with thoughts. Mercury in Pisces. And these could be catastrophic thoughts. And so you're might be second guessing yourself, but it's forward looking. So you're really wanting to do stuff future oriented, and maybe not planning per se, because we've lost the ability to use our logical thoughts to do the planning. But it's like a bull in the pen. He's already been smacked in the butt and he's ready to roar, but the gate's still closed. That's sort of what this thing is feeling like, because it's a lot conflicted. But you can channel your energies for doing out to the way things have always been. So it's status quo. That's a Saturn. And towards hardship. That's a big one for when we get to the I-Ching. So I want to highlight that right here is this week, you will see that you'll have the ability to really pound through obstacles. And that's what this alignment is. Even though Mars is conflicted to thoughts, you have Mars easily able to handle anything that Saturn throws at you. All right, so use it. Use that power. Friday, the 19th, we have the last day of the astrological year. We have the last few minutes of the sun in Pisces, and then we switch over to the vernal equinox into Aries. We also have, yeah, well, I've already covered that, but now you have the emotional emphasis with Mars. Things really get emotional, but when, if you channel this right, you have the emotions on your side if you're obliterating obstacles. So that could include anger. The emotion of Mars, it doesn't have to be angry, it doesn't have to be rage, but a lot of times it is. And because we're conflicted with the thoughts, you're really going to have to feel your way through on what's right, what's right doing and what's wrong doing for you. Okay. On Saturday, this is the vernal equinox, and for my time period in the central time zone, it's 4:38 a.m. So early in the morning, and waking up on Saturday morning, this is the exact time where the day equals the night. The time in both is equal. And when sun hits Aries, it is an airy feeling. It's fire. It's from water to fire. So jumping out of the deep ocean of Pisces and onto dry land, not only dry land, but just ready to roar. This is the fresh and new. This is the springtime, hence the vernal equinox. Vernal is, its origin is the fresh and new, marking the brand new astrological year. And so everything that we've talked about still remains in place. You do have a new opportunity here to really change around your thoughts. This one's just starting. Mercury and Uranus in a sextile. So it's real hidden in here. There's a lot of other things happening, but if you can really pick up on it, remember Uranus was frustrated by Saturn and vice versa. They're kind of rubbing each other raw right now, and they will do so for quite some time. And you now have this sextile with Uranus. And so Uranus has an opportunity on this side. And yeah, so Uranus has a chance to really give insight to your Mercury, to your thoughts. So even though you're not able to use thoughts to get stuff done, you can really get some eccentric thoughts or some really nice insights. That Uranus is like the inventor and eccentric and mad scientist. So even though your logical thoughts are sort of conflicted by Mars energy, but you can get a lot of change done. You can get a lot of insights. You might be able to invent something, take that frustration out on Uranus, and expect some aha moments. Okay. Fresh and new. Remember, that's the big news here. Vernal equinox, spring equinox. Now's when we get Venus is into Aries as well. That's why I would like to talk about the fact that the sun is contraparallel to Venus, meaning that they're the same distance on either side of the equatorial plane. And that acts like a rubbing or a weak opposition. And an opposition isn't necessarily conflict, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it does manifest in conflict. But I think with both of these in the same sign, I think we're going to see the sun, your ego, and the relationships on the same page, but they are forcing you to balance things. And so that's why we have this little depiction of the yin yang again, is because you've got sun rearing ready to go, and then, love, the yin side of things, peace and harmony is, a lot more passionate, but connected together. And so you have a sense of balance there too, or a need for balance right there, especially with this square over to your emotional solar plexus, moon, your emotional reactions and Cancer. And so emotions can get really draining and really heavy, and just be ready for those. All right. Because you've got a square that's adding to that emotional quagmire, if you will. On Monday, the 22nd, with the moon still in Cancer, it's in the water and it's trined over to Neptune, the planet of dreams and fantasy. And so there's going to be some easy big dreams. This is easy energy, easy with the water signs. And with the water signs, you can get transpersonal stuff. You can get some telepathy, some sort of magical things. I mean, you can get magical things with anything in the zodiac and all the signs, but especially the water signs, Cancer and Pisces. Neptune's been there. They're going to light up your dreams. Dreams are a manifestation of the subconscious, which the majority of the subconscious is emotional. That's the language of the subconscious. So it's going to easily bubble up. All right. And some of you might get scared about that. Tuesday, the 23rd, we're looking at this new, it's not a new, it's just going exact, is a square with Mars and Mercury. We've talked about it this whole time. And when it goes exact, it's pristine, it's crisp. It's a harsher energy. It's the max, the climax of that energy. And they're both at 11 degrees of their respective signs. And that's going to be the hardest on, I think, the Mars. As it gets closer to the North Node, it knows what it needs to get done, but it's not going to know it from the mind. It's not going to be manifested from logical thought. So like doing a pros and cons list on, let's see if I should be doing this right now. Your pros and cons list will only make you more confused in this alignment. All right. Wednesday, the 24th, is our last day of our CIRF week, and you have a T-square. Nice. It's a temporary one. I mean, moon is whipping around here pretty fast, so Uranus will be the trap, and it's that same old rub and raw Saturn, but this is chiseling away this T-square. If you can stay out of this trap, the Uranus trap, then you're going to find that it is continuing. It's using your emotions now to bolster this chiseling away at the status quo in Aries. So anyway, got a lot to say about that whole thing, but we've got to move on. I'm making some good time here. So let me take the highlighter off and let me show you guys. What I've done is crossed out the influence. I said the first half of the week is yin, receptive power. A lot of you are very familiar with the yin, and it's the feminine aspect. It's receiving. A lot of us have a hard time receiving properly, accepting, going with the flow. It's the receptive power. That sounds like an oxymoron to a lot of people. Receptive is one thing, and yin doesn't necessarily feel like power, but it is very powerful. But it's a different kind of power. It's sort of a vacuum power. The moon represents the epitome of yin, is accepting and receiving, and the sun then would be the opposite. There's a lot of these opposites in the universe. And that first half of the week is it's in Pisces. It's the sun in Pisces. Your ego is deep into the waters of Pisces and a very yin state. And the more yin that you can be, more receiving, the more relaxed, the more patient that you can be, the more power you get from that modality, which is receiving insight, receiving, could be anything in that transpersonal world. But you can't do that when you're sort of like tensed up. When you're tensed, it tenses even the mind, it tenses the body, and it rejects. It's called convergent thinking. It rejects, your mind will reject the yin sourced power. Okay, so it has to be relaxed. Yin has to be relaxed in order to do its best receiving. Then before I move on, let's talk about the lines, because you've got lines 2 and 3 that turn into yang. Let nature serve as a reminder of how, without artificiality, everything good can develop naturally. This is the time, this is the week to watch for the cycles. Just marvel at the cycles. You'll get insight from watching these cycles. And this is magical because when we look at the how it what it changes into, it's more cycles. It's crazy. And it cycles in accordance with the vernal equinox, by the way. All right, line 3, focus on accepting yourself unconditionally. That is one of the hardest parts. But if you look at accepting yourself or look at yourself in the mirror, there'll be parts of you that start tensing up. Notice that. Go do that exercise now. Go look in the mirror and see what part of your body tenses up. There's something in there in the subconscious that an emotional response to a lack of unconditionality and a lack of acceptance, and it seizes that muscle, and it's conditioned over time, habituated. So we need to completely relax to get the full insight and the full power of yin. Freedom from vanity gives you a powerful advantage. So when you're looking in the mirror, you're not looking for judgment. You're not looking for what's right. You're not looking for positivity. You're just noticing and just accepting. Do not display your virtue for all to see, but nurture it within yourself. That's why I didn't do a lot of troubleshooting with our newer camera, because don't need it in accordance with this reading. Now, instead of a solution, we're looking at the second half of the week. Pushing upward, it turns into 46, earth over wind. Pushing upward, look at this. And remember, it's vernal equinox, right? Natural advancement is represented by growth in springtime, when new plant life pushes upward through the earth. Isn't this unbelievable? It's to me, unbelievable. So we went from full yin, receptive mode, to now noticing how things are pushing through the soil, this new growth. And there's a lot more in this too. I want to read more in here. Adaptability and absence of obstacles. We'll get to that here in a second. Flexible growth is the key attribute of a plant pushing upward. This reading suggests a period of promotion and prosperity for you. We have Venus going into Aries, conjunct with the sun. And it's not like this whole Kazemi thing. It is, it's Venus on steroids, needing to be balanced with your ego. So that Venus, the reason why I bring out Venus, because she also controls finance, and we're talking about prosperity. Prosperity doesn't have to be finance, though. Prosperity can be in your relationships. It can be in your health. Lots of examples for prosperity. So don't just look for money. If there was a planet for prosperity, though, it would be Venus, but don't limit it to just finance. Make a sincere effort to apply a determined effort against the forces of inertia by bending around obstacles that arise, and good fortune will follow. Willpower and self-control are necessary to manage growth properly, but an inner enthusiasm for life is what drives it. All right, so guess what? Guess where I'm placing the chart? It's at 4:38. It's at the time of the vernal equinox, 4:38 Central Time. And we go back into our calculator, and guess what? This is when the sun first goes right into the cusp of Aries. We are actually in Rave Mandala hexagram 36. And it's line 6. It's the last part of 36. All right. And if you remember from last week, we showed you how that new moon was going to go from the first line of hexagram 36 to the last line of hexagram 36. So this is a cycle that started actually 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, and it's gonna, depending on when you watch the video, but it's going to be a 2-week cycle, and the sun is going to finish its work in hexagram 36, like we talked about last time. And what is that? Well, funny you ask, because remember, it was starting with resistance. I can't turn on my highlighter, but it starts with the line 1 resistance, and it goes through support, transition, espionage, the underground. That's where the seeds are planted, and then justice. So just like this hexagram says, the powers of darkness eventually destroy themselves. This is that time period. That sounds amazing. Now, is it just metaphoric? Because it can be. It can be metaphoric for this last astrological year, our last few degrees and minutes of Pisces, and boom, the darkness leaves us. Not that Pisces has to be all dark and everything, but you get my drift, or where, boom, now we're in springtime. We're in Aries, fire, sunshine. So anyway, hopefully it's a lot more than metaphoric. I have been noticing my little short bursts of time going into Telegram or into social media. I'm starting to see these hints that justice might really be happening under the radar. It really, to me, feels profound. I'm no longer cynical. And funny how they use both of those terms here. A profound sorrow or cynicism that is not diminished by the understanding that darkness is self-annihilating. So, in other words, the downside of line 6, which is right where that sun is when it hits the vernal equinox, is your risk of ego. Your biggest risk is that your cynicism doesn't diminish, even knowing that in this time, darkness is self-annihilating. So watch out for that. It's a time to rejoice. It's a time to switch over, switching with the times. The times is the ending of the catastrophic thinking of Pisces into the profound newness and self-identity of Aries. It's a fresh new start. So you need to cycle with it. And with that, let's find the solution slide next. And here it is. Everybody, this is the top part. This is called the influence. The influence is the cycles of yin and yang. There might be sub cycles for you, but mainly it's starting with the yin and going to yang. Now let's talk about the solution. So we had the I-Ching going to hexagram 46. This is pushing upward. It's new growth, springtime, promotion and prosperity, obliterating or bending around obstacles. Excuse me. Gate 36 in the Rave Mandala said, the last stage of darkening of the light. Excuse me, gosh. The last stage of darkening of the light. That's that whole line 6 that we spent so much time on. Justice. Powers of darkness eventually destroy themselves. It's happening, people. And then I didn't talk about this, but that sidereal solution, ironically, is Pisces. Now, there's a big difference between the influence being Pisces that we talked about and the solution being Pisces. The vernal equinox in the tropical astrology is going to happen in the sidereal Pisces. And what that means is your behaviors then would be best aligned if they slant towards the Pisces as the solution, as the behavior. And with this one, you can pick and choose. You can't necessarily pick and choose the influence. That's what's going to come as a sort of a fate. But you can choose your reaction. And what I'd like to offer is that this week, if you choose more of a Pisces actions, you're going to get more and better results. So what is Pisces? What you have to choose from? Well, avoiding escapism, because that's the sort of the downside. Self-sacrificing. You don't have to do that anymore. Spiritual Pisces gift is spiritual compassion and idealistic, which none of these are good or bad. They can go too far. if you want to, I mean, if you accidentally do it. But transcendent and psychic and awareness, all these things, these are attributes you can choose from. So let's go look for the overlap, and it's the big transition. The big transition. It's the ending of the other year, blossoming and transitioning to a whole new cycle. First half of the week is yin, which is receiving, rejuvenating, accepting all that is. The less accepting that you have, the less gifts and power you get from the yin. So, but then when you go to the second half of the week, it's about yang and new growth, opening your eyes to all that can be in your life. The overall solution should be a melding of the two, seeing the old die away, letting it go, letting it implode on itself, while also seeing the new sprouts, the new opportunities. The justice has already happened, accordance with the Rave Mandala. But seeing the cycle, that's the solution, is seeing each one of these cycles, the magic of the old dying away and the new popping up in its place, giving you a clean slate. The Pisces sidereal solution is very spiritual, transcendent, compassionate, and connected, seeing how all your thoughts and behaviors ripple outward to the rest of the universe. Each one of your behaviors is a cycle in and of itself. You know, imagine putting your hand or throwing a rock into the water and how that ripples out. If you're walking down the airport, you know, you can see from 100 feet away, as a long stretch of hallway between you and the oncoming people, how just one little move over here can affect them. And so every one of our behaviors does affect the collective and ripples out. And that's a very Pisces thing, to be aware of that. Not to walk on eggshells everywhere you go because of this ripple, but to be authentic and true, but knowing that your trueness ripples out and affects everyone else. And so it's almost a karmic thing too, to very mindfully place your behaviors, knowing just how connected we are. Avoid escapism. That's the downside of Pisces. And instead obliterate any obstacles in your way. And that Aries influence and that Mars over the North Node could really help you. Don't rely on your thoughts to help you though. But take your thoughts on those, the latter part of the week, take your thoughts and place them into Uranus. There's an opportunity there to get aha. So just let go of your logic and thoughts and rational. And in that, especially the second half of the week, you'll get that Uranus. Oh my God. You can do that mostly in your dreams, the hypnagogia stage, where these aha moments, that's the divergent mind. You want to let go of tension in the mind and let the insights come in. We did pretty good on timing today. Who's got questions? We're not doing this live, but maybe soon we shall. I have been never busier, but it's a joy to bring this to you, and I hope this produces some help for you navigate this week. Be blessed, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.